This is a live look at Manhattan. It's the scene of former U.S. President Donald Trump's hush money trial. Stormy Daniels, the adult film actor who alleges she had a sexual encounter with Trump, is testifying. Trump faces 34 counts of falsifying business records for allegedly trying to cover up payments made to Daniels in exchange for her silence. Reporter Sally Patterson joins us live now from New York.
Well, now it's time for the defense to have their chance to question Stormy Daniels. All morning, they've waited relatively patiently as the prosecution has asked Stormy Daniels to really lead them through her relationship with Donald Trump. Just going back to earlier this morning as a reminder of what we've heard from Daniels, she alleges that she met Trump in 2006. She says that they met on a golf course at a tournament, and she alleges that she was invited back to his hotel room after they met to have dinner together. She said she agreed to do so after speaking to her publicist, who said you should go because it will be a great story, if nothing else. She said when she arrived at his suite, Donald Trump was in there wearing just his satin or silk pajamas. She said they had dinner where they discussed the porn industry, they discussed her job, and they discussed, she says, going into business together, and even her appearing on his show at the time, Celebrity Apprentice. Stormy Daniels also says that she, after they had eaten, went into the bathroom. When she came out, she alleges that Donald Trump was lying on his bed in just his underwear. She then took the jury through her account of a sexual encounter. Now, Donald Trump has continuously denied that the two of them ever had any relationship or ever had an affair, as she has put it. Throughout her testimony, Donald Trump sat there watching. He sometimes had his eyes closed, but he watched her very intently. Now, post-lunch, what we heard was his defense team basically asked the judge for a mistrial, alleging that everything that had happened was inappropriate and prejudicial and basically shouldn't be allowed to happen inside the courtroom. The judge did not hold that up, and the judge basically refused to allow for a mistrial. Now the defense has their opportunity to ask Stormy Daniels their questions. They've asked her, for example, about social media posts that she put up, which called Trump words and names and basically made him look silly, because she has admitted in the courtroom that she hates him and also said that she believes he should go to jail if he's found guilty. Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 different counts of falsifying business records. That's in relation to money that he allegedly paid to his former fixer, Michael Cohen, who had paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 to keep quiet about said alleged affair. Now, the reason that this is in court at the moment is because that money, that $130,000, was then filed by Trump's team as legal expenses ahead of the 2016 election. The prosecution claims that that was wrong and, in fact, illegal.
Oh, did we lose you there, Sally? Well, actually, no. In fact, I think you probably just ended your thought there and I misheard. But Sally, when it comes to Trump's reaction to Stormy Daniels' testimony so far, how's he been taking it all?
Well, he's been forced to sit in a room listening to these allegations by someone who has made them before. She's written a book, she's given interviews, but now they're really meters apart from each other, having to watch each other in this very intimate scene that she's portraying. Throughout her testimony, Trump repeatedly whispered to his team, sat around him, and they then would ask for an objection and they would try and halt her testimony, saying that it was too detailed. And in fact, Daniels was asked by the judge repeatedly to try and keep to the questions that were being put to her. Now, also of note is during court today, Donald Trump's team sent an email to his supporters, once again calling this whole trial a witch hunt, calling it a political smear and asking for donations for his political bid. He is, of course, running to return to the White House at the end of this year. Back to you.
Thanks so much for the latest, Sally. That's reporter Sally Patterson in New York. And let's stay on this and bring in Josh Naftalis. He's a former federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, and he is now a partner with the law firm Palace Partners and joins us for more on this testimony and on this key witness. Josh, thanks so much for making time for us.
Thanks for having me.
So how integral is this testimony from Stormy Daniels to the prosecution's case?
So I think it's key for two reasons. One, she tells the story, of course, why the hush money payments were necessary, right? Like what happened that was being hushed up. And two, this is sort of the drama of the case, which I think the prosecution is going to try to exploit, and obviously the defense hates because it is salacious in its own way.
Yeah, it sounded as though the judge was sort of pushing back at some of the questions being asked and some of by the prosecution and some of the details that Daniels was giving.
Yeah, I think what the judge was doing was he was exercising his discretion under the rules of evidence to say sort of the details of the encounter aren't relevant. While the media and sort of the populace may think it's interesting to find out about the president's sex life, it's not really relevant. What matters is sort of something happened, there was an encounter, that's all that matters.
Is that all that matters, or are some of the details relevant from your perspective?
I mean, there's an argument that the more that happened, the more he wanted to hush it up. But I think the fact that they had sex or whatever it was is enough that he wanted to hush it up. And I think that's all the government really needs to prove. Because what matters is the falsification of the business records. It's not, what exactly happened in that hotel room.
What kind of risks come along with, testimony from a witness, and in this case, Stormy Daniels? I mean, talking about these personal encounters. Also, it was years ago, though. It sounds as though she has very detailed memory of the encounter itself, the room that it was in, all sorts of things. But
Right.
What sort of risks come with that testimony?
So I think the risk is, I assume you're asking from the prosecution's point of view, which
Right.
is, how does she hold up in discussing an intimate matter? It's obviously not easy for her. And then the question is sort of what does the government do? Excuse me, what does the defense do on cross-examination? Because they're trying to show that she was somehow embellishing, making it up, has an axe to grind. And I think that we saw in the beginning that yes, some of the questions were, do you hate the president? And she said something to the effect of, yes, I don't like him. That would imply that she's somehow biased or wants to convict him as opposed to tell the truth. So I think that's what makes her difficult as a witness. There's also just so much written about her, and it is a salacious story.
Yeah, it's interesting. She had talked about the dinner request, the initial dinner request from Donald Trump, and saying that she told her publicist about it first. And I wonder what the strategy might be there in terms of, from the prosecutor's perspective, of her sharing that information, or how the defense might use that against her.
Sure. So one of the strategies you use as a prosecutor when you're trying to show that the witness is telling the truth is to point out how the witness recalled certain minor details. What hotel room, what color were the sheets, the kind of things that if you're making it up, it's a lot to make up. And it tends to corroborate, and then they can prove it up in some other way. Maybe there's a hotel bill or whatever shows that they were at this specific hotel. It's not very powerful testimony for a witness to get up on the stand and in 2 minutes say, the president called me, went to the hotel room, end of story. What you want to do is create an arc of a story that shows, here's a person who's confident as to what happened. Look at everything she could remember from the big to the little.
Could it be used, though, in a way, Josh, to say that she was looking at the dinner or whatever the interaction with her and Donald Trump might have been? I mean, she wouldn't have known before it happened, but looking at it as a way of getting publicity for herself. If she called the publicist first, could that be a way that the defense might spin that?
Sure. I mean, they're going to try to smear her, right? What was her motive in going into this dinner? This wasn't sort of love at first sight. She had something that she wanted from Donald Trump. You can judge it, but she had something what she wanted, and that doesn't mean that what he did was correct or that he's not guilty. It just means that it's a way to make the witness feel uncomfortable on the stand, make her feel like she did something wrong, which is what you want to do as a defense lawyer. It's not necessarily what people enjoy sitting through as a witness, but it's a way to show the jury maybe this person is not coming here out of the goodness of her own heart. Maybe she went into the encounter with mixed motives. Maybe she doesn't like the guy sitting here today. That's how you know this is not someone who is as a truth teller. That's what you would argue.
We'll continue to follow along to see how each side ends up, putting this forward or suggesting in terms of their questioning as well. And watch out for more testimony, too. Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, is going to testify. That should be an interesting one as well. Josh, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
That was former federal prosecutor Josh Naftalis in New York.